Hi everyone, my name is Yusuf and you're watching my first Blender tutorial. This Blender tutorial is for absolute beginners, so if you already know a lot of Blender, better not watch this video. This is truly for someone who installs Blender for the first time and wonders why he cannot move that cube. So, before we start, let me just start Blender again. And why am I doing this? Because I do believe when you start Blender for the first time, you can choose your theme. So choose a theme and then go to New File, the first one where it says General. After you have chosen your theme, click on it. You will enter in this, you will actually see now, if you did that correctly, this view, this window. This is called the viewport. And I will start by showing you some handy tricks. First of all, the resolution. Depending on your monitor, you may find that the letters are too small or too big to read. So how do we change this? Here you have on the top left your Blender icon, then you have File, then you have Edit. Click on Edit. Go down to Preferences. Go to User Interface, and there, if you hold the middle mouse wheel into the first menu, the first item of that menu, and in a resolution scale, you hold down your mouse, you can basically change the size. I personally keep it at 1.50, but you can change that, and you can do so incrementally when you click on these side arrows. 150 is for me excellent for the tutorial, but you may change yours depending on the size of your monitor. So remember, edit mode, preferences, interface, the first item that you found, click your left mouse button, hold it down and slide, either left or right, depending on what you do. Then you're going to choose your theme, or change it, or whichever you like. If you want to change your theme, it's the second one where it says Themes, and you go to the top menu where you see Presets. There you have this little slider, click on it, and you can choose another theme. For example, if you like a whitish screen, as you can see, you can choose the white one. Changing that, you can also change to gray, you can change to whichever you like. You have a print friendly mode, some people like this, I don't. You have XSI, a little bit deep contrasts in this mode, depending really on your preferences. I use Blender Dark, and if you want the same thing, well, now you know it's the first one that you will find, Blender Dark. Okay, now we know how to change the theme and how to change the resolution, and I'm guessing now you have the right resolution and theme. So what is the first thing we do? Well, we look at the right top corner, and this is called the outliner. Here you have a list of all your objects, and this is important because when you have many objects, you can simply, so now I deselected by clicking outside my object, you can simply click whichever you like. For example, I'm selecting the camera view, the object, the camera icon, it becomes orange. As you can see, I click on the cube, it becomes orange, which means selected. I click on the light, it becomes selected. This is one way to select these objects, or you can simply click on them directly. So now you know how to select. Let's take a look at the view. You can rotate the view by holding down your middle mouse wheel, and I want you to do so you get used to it. This allows you to change the view, to rotate it without moving the view. But what if we want to move the view? Well, then you have over here on the right side these 4 icons. The first one is not to move but to zoom, and I will show you. When I'm holding in this icon, it will zoom the view. And you can also do so simply by scrolling your mouse wheel. So holding in the mouse wheel rotates the view. Scrolling the mouse wheel zooms in the view or zooms out, depending on which direction. Then the second of these icons, the hand, when I click and I hold it in, I move the view. So this is not the same as rotating the view. Remember, rotating the view is holding in the middle mouse wheel. Moving the view is holding in that hand, which basically pans the view or simply moves the view. These two we don't need for the time being. You just need the zoom in, zoom out the view, and if you hover over it, it tells you. See, you see, move the view, zoom in, zoom out. Okay, so now we know how to scroll, zoom in, zoom out, scroll your mouse wheel, or using this. We know how to move the view, holding in that hand, and I use always the hand because the shortcut for this is basically holding down Shift and your middle mouse wheel at the same time to move the view. If you only hold in the middle mouse wheel, you rotate the view. For this reason, I always use the middle mouse wheel only to rotate the view. When I hold it in, I rotate the view. When I move it, I hold in the hand and I move the view. It's better than holding Shift and middle mouse wheel at the same time. That's a little bit tedious. So, but you can do this, and don't you worry. All the shortcuts are over here, and I will leave a link below to my PDF document. You can access this at any time. I will leave this underneath in the description box. So no worries about shortcuts. They're all in my list of shortcuts, the ones at least that I teach. And by the way, I am a beginner myself, so there you know it. And that's why I'm doing a tutorial for absolute beginners, because Blender is a lot to learn, despite what people may say. All these people that make these beautiful projects have like years of experience, if not more than a decade. So don't you worry. If you find that in the beginning there's much to learn, yes, Blender is user friendly and it has a lot. But fear not, I will take you step by step. And this is, of course, an absolute beginner's tutorial, so we won't do much in this tutorial, except a little bit moving the view and showing you the 3 basic functions in object mode. And mind you, we are, as you can see here, in object mode. No worries for other modes, we will get there in time. Okay, so now we know how to move the view. This is very good. I want you to exercise this when you finished viewing the video. So rotate the view, pan the view with the hand, zoom in and zoom out. Very important. Okay, now before we use these functions, how do we add an object? This is also very important by simply clicking on Add. You have here the menu. So on the top left second menu bar, you have object mode, view. When I click on it, select, and then you have add. When you click on add, you have mesh. When you click on it, you can choose between a plane, a cube, a circle, UV sphere, etc. Mostly we will use a cube because this is the most versatile thing to use. But you can add other things as well. And when you add them, they come in the middle where your cursor is located. So if I add an object, for example, a sphere, let's add a sphere. I will move it so that you can see it. It becomes basically, as you can see, inside, because every object is added at the cursor. And yes, we can move the cursor, but I'm not going to show this now, because that would make the video kind of lengthy. We'll show this when it is needed. Again, if I want to click on any of these strings, no worries if it's not visible. For example, I go to UV sphere on the top right window and I click on it. And depending on which item I click, whether it is selection or any of the other, you will see a change. If I leave it on selection, it will select the object. And now we're going to learn the move function, the rotate and the scale. Moving an object, you click on move. And you can move it on 3 axes. If I click on the blue arrow, on that gizmo, it moves it along the z-axis, and you see a blue line. This tells you it moves on this axis. Let's scroll a little bit out, zoom out. Then let's just try the x-axis. Same thing here. It moves it along and only along the x-axis. When you click on the y-axis, it moves it on the y-axis. But what if you want to move it freely? Well, no worries. Let's deselect by clicking outside the object and select it again. But this time, go to selection box until you see this orange line and press on G. When you press on G, you can move it freely. If you then wish to move it only, so you can move it freely by moving your mouse, but if I want only on axis, I press the X button. If I want it on the Z button. If I want it on the Y button. But deselecting and pressing again on G, which is for move. And I don't know why they didn't do this M, but strangely enough, the G from grab. When you press G, it moves an object. So if I select this cube and I press G, I can freely move it. I can move it again by pressing G, but this time let's choose on the x-axis. And you see, this is very handy, only on the x-axis. If I want it on the y-axis, I press again on G, then Y, and look at this, it moves on the y-axis. So each object can be moved in 3 different axes. It can also be rotated in different axes. Let's just press the function key rotate. And now you have this gizmo. And if I press on the red line, which is the x-axis, and hold it in, I can rotate. And it goes from the middle of the object on the x-axis or the y. If I hold on the y-axis, I can choose the z-axis if I press on the z-axis. And you see, same thing for scale. I can switch to scale. And by the way, when you select an object, you're not obligated to deselect and select it again. So if it's selected and put, for example, on this function move, you can simply switch to rotate and it will go to the rotate gizmo or scale. Scaling is the exact same thing. Scaling on the x-axis makes your object bigger on the x-axis. On the z-axis, scales it on the z-axis. On the y-axis, on the y. And of course, if I just press S, it scales the entire object. Likewise, with rotate, if I press just on R, which is rotate, so moving an object is G. For example, when I'm in selection mode, I select an object G. G is move, and I can move it freely by simply pressing once. I can rotate it freely just by pressing once. I can scale it freely, make it bigger as a whole or small just by pressing S. And if you're thinking, whoa, that's already a lot of shortcuts, no worries, because here you have the 3 shortcuts. And it's on the second page. You see, this is the first page, Blender Shortcuts. This is the second page. You have grab, which is G. You can do it on the Z, Y, X-axis, or hold the middle mouse wheel. Same thing from rotate and scale. And by the way, holding the middle mouse wheel gives you actually, so if I press G and then hold the middle mouse wheel, gives you instantly 3 axes to choose from. Whereas if I only press G and then X, it moves only on one. The choice is then only one axis. Then I have to press another axis to move it on another axis. So we learned how to move, how to rotate, and how to scale. And just one thing, when you press rotate, you can actually press it, and that's only with rotate another time. Wait. So why isn't it doing that? Well, that's kind of odd. Ah, right. Sorry, people. I was pressing, you see, it happens very quickly. So with rotate, which is R for shortcut, when you press it consecutively 2 times, you have a complete movement, free movement of rotation. When you press it 1 time, and yes, voilà. When you press it 1 time, you have this. And this allows you to rotate, but only on one axis. You have to press second time to truly rotate it everywhere. And this is only with rotate. The other gizmos don't have this. If I press G, even if I press second time, nothing happens. If I press scale, same thing. Because they only have one function, either in move or scale. Only rotation, if I press the R, you can press it again to truly move it anywhere. Okay, so now we know how to move, how to add an object, how to move the view. And I want you to practice this. Use my shortkeys if you need them. And other than that, I don't think there is anything left to say for this absolute beginner's tutorial. Maybe the delete if I haven't said it. So you can press delete on your keyboard, or you can delete simply by pressing X. And then you delete. And no worries, I do believe I have it somewhere on my shortcut. Yes, delete X. So you see it's here. The left panel is N for this over here, in case I haven't explained this already. And basically this allows you to change the location, rotation, or the scale independently with precision. If I go to item, yes. So you have item, tool, and view. What you need is item. When I press N, this menu appears, and now you see location, rotation, and scale. Why is this important? Well, let's say we add a cube. I go to add over here on the left top side. I click on add mesh cube. And now I want to move the location of that cube, but I want to do it precisely. I could use this, but this is not precise. So you see there's always a value. Suppose I press 6. You see? I can move it on the z-axis, but very precise. And why is this needed? Let's say I want to copy this object. I press Shift D, which is for copy, by the way. And I press Escape. It puts the object back where I copied it. So now there are 2 cubes. I press on Z or X. You know what? Y. Then it moves there. And I put in a value, precise value, on the y-axis. Come on, why aren't you moving? Oh yes, it's not. Oh, no, that's not it. Why is it? Oh, rotation. Silly me, I was rotating the object. Yes. Okay, not in rotation, in location, of course. Number 4. There it is. Now we have this moved for meters, because it's in meters that it denotes, to on the y-axis. If I want it on the other side, I can just press here and say -4. And as you can see, this is actually using the move function in a much precise way than just holding. This could prove useful when you work with multiple objects and you want them in, you want to align them precisely on one of these axes. So now you know it. You can move an object freely by simply selecting it and selecting move or pressing G, or you can put in the location. Same thing with rotation, same thing with scale. If I want to change the size, I can go to Z, for example. I can press 10 and look at that. It becomes bigger on the Z axis. Let's say I want to move it a little bit on the Y. There it is. I want to move it on the X axis. I can do this as well. So play with this. Experiment with these three functions: grab, rotate, and scale. Use my shortkeys if you want. And I guess we see each other next time. Now this may seem as not much in the beginning, and I repeated myself a lot, but I do so because I have experience with Blender. I am a beginner and I watched many tutorials. And in those tutorials they go way too quick. They show you much more in 20 minutes, but by the time you start a second tutorial, you have already forgotten what you have learned in the first, etc., etc. And after 20 videos, I can assure you that you want to start a project and suddenly you know nothing anymore because you went way too quickly. And this is how people get frustrated and abandon, and I speak of experience. I installed Blender more than 3 times and uninstalled it furiously after getting frustrated, but never gave up, as you can see. And I am getting a little bit better than all the previous ones, so never give up. Experiment, and if there's something that you can't do, leave a comment below. I will answer it before I start making my second video. Thanks for watching, and I guess we see each other next time, or not. Bye bye everyone.